Hi, everyone, and welcome to Where's God podcast. In this podcast, we try to find God in movies, shows, songs, in places where He's not obviously found. And most importantly, we try to find God in our own stories, our own lives. And this week's episode is Where's God in It Ends With Us. And through this movie, we will be talking about having faith through our hardships. And this is about take 235, so I'm hoping it's the last one. Cross your fingers. Okay, now this is actually a book, a very popular book, but I haven't read it. But it was just released out in theaters and I did watch the movie. I really liked the movie. I thought it was, good pace and good acting, and I liked the characters. So overall, I liked it. And just a little summary, the movie is called It Ends With Us because it's talking about ending a cycle or a pattern of abuse and trauma. The main character, Lily, her mom was abused by her father all her growing up. And then later on in Lily's life, she ends up in an abusive relationship. And she doesn't want her life to continue down that road or have her daughter continue the pattern. So It Ends With Us is her saying to her newborn baby, her daughter, it ends with you and me. And this movie has a lot of social media swirling about it, a lot of people talking about it, and some people have beef with the fact that this was promoted as a romantic comedy, but it's not. It's a movie about domestic violence, and I have a couple of things to say about that. So like I said, I haven't read the book, so I didn't know the plot at all, and when I watched the trailer and watched clips, you could tell it was a movie about domestic violence because it shows it there in the trailer. So it does promote it that way. But also, the movie very much is a romantic comedy until it's not. So when the two characters meet, how they meet is very cute and in a romantic comedy kind of way, and how he pursues her and how they fall in love is all very rom-com-esque until it's not, until the abuse starts. And I would imagine that's how it probably is in real life as well. And also sometimes people in these relationships might want to show it as a rom-com, as a loving relationship when it's not. So I really didn't see a problem with how it was promoted because of that, and I just had to get that off my chest. So I've thought a lot about this movie and what I wanted to talk about, and like I said, I want to talk about faith, and the reason for that is because I want to try to relate it to also what I'm going through in my life. So I want to focus on faith and how we approach God when we're in the storms of our lives. For Lily, the main character, it took a lot of strength and faith for her to leave the abusive relationship. And it wasn't just a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, it was a marriage. And right when a terrible abusive episode happens in the movie, she finds out she's pregnant. So she was in love with this man, she was married and pregnant. So she had to have a lot of faith of knowing that what was on the other side of this relationship was better. So even though she would be losing a lot and having to start over and be alone, she had to know that leaving him would lead her to a better, safer, happier life. And I'm sure she had a lot of doubts and fears, but she had the hope of a better life for her and for her daughter. And I'm realizing that it's in the times of the most doubt and fears and anxiety in life is when we have to have the most faith. Even though sometimes those are the moments when we're saying, "Where are you, God? You're not helping me. You're not answering me. You're not delivering me out of this." Even though it's a really hard time and you have a lot of those questions, that's when we need the most faith. Those are the testimony building times, the times where we can really gain trust in God. And having faith during the trial is also going to help carry us through the trial. And then on the other side of it, give us a greater joy and appreciation for God that He helped us through. So relating this to my life, I'm made a really big decision. I'm moving from Utah to Connecticut where I grew up. And at first it was like exciting, thinking of, starting a new life and everything that comes with that. But then once I started getting into the details of actually moving and starting over and what I was leaving behind, it became very scary. And after things like not working out right away, like not finding a place to live or a job right away, I found myself saying, well, if this is what I was supposed to be doing, then things would be working out. If I was supposed to move, then things would be falling into place. And of course, that would give me even more anxiety. And then one day I had the thought of, Chrissy, this is where you need to be exercising faith. Like, this is the time right now when it's hard. Faith that God is preparing a way for me and that He has a plan and that everything's going to work out. And honestly, since then, I've been a lot more calm. And if I start feeling sad about what or who I'm leaving behind, I just feel grateful. I feel grateful for the amazing friends and people I've met in Utah and the great experiences I've had. So, like I said before, I believe that faith can carry us through our hardships. And although it's hard at times for me still, and it's hard sometimes for me to pray because I question if He's going to help, I know that when I push through those feelings and have faith and pray, then I gain a little bit more hope and a little bit more faith and a little bit more peace. Now, there's still a lot of work on my end for things to work out, but my faith gives me the strength to keep going, just like Lily in the movie. Now, it's not until the climax, the very end of the movie, where you really know Lily is going to leave her husband. There's times where you think she's going to go back, like when she's pregnant, she has him over to build the crib. And then when she's just given birth, she says, why don't we name her after your brother who passed away when you were younger? So you're still wondering, like, are they going to get back together in the hospital room? But it's right at this moment that she is laying down with the baby in her arms and Ryle, her husband, is laying next to her, that she says, I want a divorce. And of course he wants to argue and say why, but she asks him some poignant questions. She turns to him and says, what would you tell your daughter if she told you she was in a relationship with someone who pushed her down the stairs but said she fell by accident? What would you tell your daughter if she said, the man I love pinned me down, I was shouting for him to stop, but he wouldn't and he hurt me? What would you tell your daughter? And he says, I would tell her to leave him and beg her to never go back. So it's in this moment where you know that he has realized that this can't go on anymore. And this reminded me of a talk given to my congregation a couple of years ago about questions. And it was by S. Michael Wilcox. And he talks about how usually we are the questioners and God is the answerer. But if you flip that and change your perspective, therein could lie your answer. Meaning that if we make ourselves the answerer and God the questioner. And he brings up questions that Jesus asks in the Bible. So Jesus asks in John, what seek ye? And he asks Mary outside the empty tomb, why weepest thou? Who seekest thou? In another part, he asks, lovest thou me? And before raising Lazarus from the dead, he asks, believest thou this? And when they are trying to feed the 5,000, he asks, how many loaves have ye? What do you have? He uses more examples in the talk, but honestly, when I was reading through my notes, the very first question, what seekest thou, already really helped me. Like, what am I seeking in life? And those same things I can find when I move, and maybe even a greater opportunity. So in the movie, when she says she wants to divorce Ryle, he basically asks, why? Why can't we be a family? And when she answers with those questions, what would you tell your daughter if she said this? She is basically saying, lovest thou me? Lovest thou thy daughter? And the answer to that helps him see why he has to let them go, because he does love his daughter. And I think changing our questions or finding answers in what God has taught can help us through our difficulties. And why do we have these difficulties? Why did Lily have to go through abuse? And I believe it was to help her in the end, to help her grow and learn and become whole. Growing up with her abusive father and the trauma from that still haunted her and shaped her decisions and how she lived her life. But going through domestic violence with Ryle in her own relationship, she was able to learn how strong she was when she was able to push herself and leave the relationship, and that helped her heal from her past and present trauma and come out on the other side stronger and healthier for herself and her daughter. So I think our tests and hardships in life are for a reason. And if we have faith and trust in God and allow those moments to teach us, we will be better people and become the person God sees us as. And while it's always really exciting to find God in these different stories, it always really helps and benefits me and my story and my life. So I hope you can find God in your story and let faith carry you through your hardships.